Another season of anime is now over, and with it comes the series finale of The Promised Neverland with the ending of Season 2. And if you've seen the show, there's certainly a lot to talk about. So without any further ado, this is my review of the second season and final season of The Promised Neverland. After escaping from the farm, Emma, Ray, and the rest of the children now face the unknown dangers of the outside world. And before we dive into this review, there will be spoilers for the entire season. Everyone is talking about what the season brought to us. So if you haven't seen the second season of The Promised Neverland, please do stay away until you have done so. And if you want to see my thoughts on the first season, there's a card right here for you to check that video out as well. And if you're new here, welcome to the channel. My name is Ren. I like to talk about movies, trailers, and anime in general, so consider clicking the subscribe button if you haven't done so yet, and you'll always be aware of whenever I upload more content. And I gotta say that this season started out great. The same slow, methodical pacing with those great horror and suspense elements that we had in the first season with great characterization is still abound in the first half of the season, because this season really is a season of 3 parts. So I'm going to start with the first part, which is basically the first 5 episodes until we had that 5.5 recap episode for absolutely no reason, because in that first half I loved what we were getting. We were getting more into our characters, more into our world. We understand a bit more of the demons right away. Our characters meet these 2 demons who turned out they don't eat humans, they are not evil. Sonju and Mujika are actually some of my favorite characters in this season because they nuance and they deepen this world and the demon culture itself. And as soon as they come in and they talk about the legend of the promise that was made 1,000 years ago, the lore of this world became intensely more interesting. Immediately you start to understand that there's so much more to learn. The appeal of this world and this show itself became much more profound than I expected, and at the time at least I started imagining how far this show could go with 5, 6, 7 seasons. Now yes, that turns out to be wrong, which makes it even more frustrating because the promise and the potential was there from the beginning. It takes us like 3 to 4 episodes for the kids to even find William Minerva's lair and where he hid the kids from long ago, where he was preparing that bunker, and our kids find a little solace of happiness, not only when they are spending time with Sonju and Mujika, but also in that lair as they prepare yet another phase of their plan to go back and get more children from Gracefield. And throughout all of this, we not only get an expansion of the world and our understanding of that world, but we also get a growth in our characters, as Emma, who is a fantastic character. I just love how this show writes Emma, even in the bad parts that we will get to. I think Emma is the most consistently great character in this show that I already loved from season 1. What I love that they do with Emma in the first half of this season, in those earlier episodes, is that she becomes that leader. She solidifies herself as the leader of this group without ever compromising her strong beliefs. She has a very strong moral core, and that always grows throughout. But to me, what really caught me and really made me feel for her was when she asks Sonju to teach her how to hunt, and Emma starts seeing the harshness of the world, because yes, demons farm humans and eventually eat them, but you have to do that now too, Emma. You have to take a life from an innocent creature just to survive, which again nuances and brings shades of gray into our understanding of humans and demons and the correlation of both of them in this world, which eventually leads our characters into finding out that humans are working with demons in trying to capture these children as they run into these soldiers and they have to hide away. And again, the potential and the intrigue and the suspense and tension rise even more throughout all of these elements coming together. And so eventually the children find a way to disguise themselves as demons and go into this little town where, and again, if you're watching this far and you haven't seen the season, another spoiler alert, I was right and Norman was alive all along. He has gathered with this group of other people, adults, who were experimented on at Lambda Project. It's just a very emotional reunion. I really loved that Norman was alive, and to me it made sense that this character was alive even when they go into explaining it in the flashback episode. But the reunion itself was just a major emotional relief. I really loved seeing our wonderful trio back together. And even after that, the show brings yet another new element that adds to the intrigue and tension and to the potential of where this show could go / could have gone, because Norman is now so traumatized. He has come up with this plan with his new group, where he is known as the boss, to eradicate all demons. He has come up with a potion that makes demons regress and go back to their most savage primal state, where basically they have no brain function and they are just dumb, wild animals. And Emma does not want to do this. This brings us back to what I talked about with Emma, that I love her so much. Her strong core moral belief that she doesn't budge. She wants to find a way to compromise and save everyone, to bring peace to this world. And when we see the flashback of Norman's episode and where he was experimented on, how he was experimented on, all these humans being tortured, being eaten, and his fellow new recruits with Vincent and all the other ones, it's extremely traumatic, and it reminds me a lot of why I love the first season so much. Then we have the episode where Norman attacks. He tricks Emma into thinking that she could go get Mujika and Sonju, because Mujika is known as the evil-blooded girl. She is someone who does not need to eat humans, neither does Sonju, because they have this blood that can make demons regenerate, because demons have eaten humans for thousands of years, because otherwise they will regress. With Mujika's blood, that won't happen. So Emma, Ray, and two other kids go to get Mujika and Sonju. They finally find them, but Norman strikes on the town mercilessly. He believes he will be the god of this new world that he sees, where demons just won't exist anymore. Up until this moment, ladies and gentlemen, I will defend this season. I think this season was great. It presented great ideas. It twisted our expectations, and I think it did it beautifully, because the very thought of having Emma and Ray versus Norman, that idea presents a lot of interesting themes, which they even explore to an extent in the version of things that they did, because all this is us seeing that humans can be just as demonic as demons themselves. We know this very well, but these are just kids, and I really love the allegory of kids growing up to see the real harshness of the world. Not only how horrible demons are, which they knew from the get-go, but how horrible we humans can be. And it turns out that Norman, executing this plan, tries to kill this little girl who is the granddaughter of this old man who turns out also has the evil blood and can regenerate himself. And Norman, turns out, is just a scared kid. He was tortured, he was examined, he was experimented on. He's got an expiration date on his life because he's so sick because of all the drugs they inject him with. He's just a scared kid. And in one freaking episode, he changes his mind. And this is where the bow breaks. This is where the season broke for me. Because as much as I love Emma with her strong convictions and her strong core moral beliefs, Norman should have that as well. Yes, he was wrong. Yes, the story should have been that eventually he turns to the good side again. I agree with that. I don't think it should have happened in one episode, because from this moment on, I think they crammed what could have potentially be at least 2 seasons worth of story with Emma fighting Norman, and then when it comes to the end, Emma, Norman, and Ray and all the others trying to rescue the entire world to bring humans back into the human world. I think that could have been at least 2 more seasons. But no, because in just the remaining 4 or 3 episodes, we have the kids gathering around, reteaming with Norman, everyone becoming friends, Sonju and Mujika team up with them, the old man Vilk as well, and somehow he convinces so many fucking demons to turn to the good side and liberate these children because they don't need their blood anymore in just a span of like a day. But we never see that. From one moment to the next is just these twists and reveals that we don't see the build up to them at all. Isabella, who had this great moment earlier in the season where she gets offered something that we never found out what it was, and she turns back evil again, and I think she should have been the ultimate villain. But we don't get that. We get a quick invasion from one moment to the next where the kids are back in Gracefield and they gather everyone around in a fucking instant. That was so well executed. There were no issues with our plan, turns out, and when they come face to face with Peter Rotary, the younger brother of William Minerva, it's just solved in an episode. The last half of the season was so incredibly rushed. What was Isabella offered in that earlier episode? Why did she turn back to the good side? Why did she have that psychotic look that we were all so afraid of in the first season when it turns out it was for nothing? The children convince Isabella to go with them to the human world, as well as all the other freaking mothers who for some reason agreed with Isabella and put up no struggles, no conflict. They just agreed that they were tired of raising children, but we don't see any of that. It just turns out that's the way it is. To say the very least, all these moments, all these reveals that just happen like that very quick completely contradict the pacing of the first season and even the first half of the season. Those last 4 episodes are just filled with moments that we had no build to. The suspense, the tension, the horror, the harshness of the world, it was just all gone. These kids were just very smart and very ahead of everyone else. Ray himself, a character that was probably my favorite in the first season, he does nothing in this season. He's just there and he confirms that he agrees or disagrees with someone else's plans. But in the first season, he was the guy who had a counter plan to the bad guys' counter plan to our hero's plan. And even then, he had more plans to counter other counters. Ray was just ahead of others so many steps. And in here, he just talks. He's all talk in this season. The final few moments, that final montage was extremely frustrating because, again, you could see the potential. The kids are sent back to the human world, but Emma, Norman, Ray, and Norman's friends stay back with Mujika and Sonju, and we see these quick shots of them traveling the world and talking to demons and convincing them that they should leave kids alone. They don't need to eat their blood, which, sure, you have Mujika, you can do that. But why are we doing this so fast? I get that the manga is over, which I never read. I like to keep things separate. I'm appreciating and commentating and criticizing the show for what it is on its own. This final montage just has so much potential as a season itself. Did every demon get convinced so quickly? That Grand Council of Demons, did they just quickly turn and agree with these kids when they came in and said, hey, we have this evil blood, you don't need to eat us. So they could have just been evil guys. They could have just been evil demons who, no, we prefer to eat humans, fuck you guys. That could have been it. But there was an entire season's worth of story in there. When the kids and the moms come into the real world, how did they adjust? Because the demon world is very old school. I won't say quite medieval, but it feels very much like it doesn't have a lot of technology, at least accessible to the children themselves. So how did they get themselves accustomed to this new world? Because it looks like present day, judging from the shots that we see of the real world, of the human world. And that final moment, we have Phil, who's all grown up. He's so grown, he's an adolescent at that point. And then Emma, Ray, and Norman just look the exact same, and we have this final smile, everybody hugging, and it's over. This second half of the season is extremely frustrating. From the moment that Norman turns in a single episode just after Emma confronting him, it didn't sit right. And from then on, every single decision with this show, how fast they did it, and how little impact every decision felt that it left behind, it left no marked. It was completely underwhelming, completely frustrating, and I feel in many ways goes against a lot of what the first season and the first half of the season built. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is the worst ending ever and that it ruins everything that came before it, because it doesn't. It really doesn't. This is a good ending. We just shouldn't have gotten to this ending this fast, this quick, with just 2 seasons. This was a show that could have very well, without stretching anything at all, go into 4, maybe 5 seasons. This show was slow, it was methodical, it was suspenseful, it was tense, it had a great world, great characters that had to learn harsh lessons. Everything about this show was just an allegory to growing up and finding out the truths of the harshness of the world, and I think those last few episodes do betray what it was building. It doesn't completely destroy it. I still love the first season, I still really like the first half of this one, but The Promised Neverland goes out not with a bang, but in a dud. I think it does a disservice to the story as a whole, to where it could have gone, to these characters, and to the fans themselves, to be honest. I'm giving The Promised Neverland Season 2 a C. It's a long way down from what I gave the first season, and while I don't think it's horrible, it certainly didn't leave a good mark. But those are my thoughts on the second and final season of The Promised Neverland. Throwing it over to you, what did you think? Do you agree with me? Do you like it more? Do you hate it even more than I do? Let me know in the comments below, and again, thank you so much for watching. You are the best, and if you watched this far but haven't subscribed yet, click the subscribe button. Be aware of whenever I upload more content that you will enjoy, whether it's anime, a movie or series review, or a trailer reaction. I hope to see you in those, and stay tuned because this week I will start reacting and reviewing to every single episode of Shaman King, and I will start reviewing every single season of My Hero Academia now that the 5th season is out as well. Thank you so much once more, and so until the next one, love each other and love the movies.